Hi, I'm Sam Linter and I'm the Managing Director of Bolney Wine Estate. We are one of the oldest vineyards in the UK, starting in 1972 by my parents, so right back in the early days. We make lots of wine here at Bolney. We specialise in red wine especially from Pinot Noir, but we also make still whites, rosés and sparkling wines by the traditional method as well. We sell our wines locally. It's a really important market for us. All vineyards should sell their wine locally. It's a local product, so low carbon footprint on that, and that's really important to us. But we also sell nationally. We're in a couple of supermarkets. We are in Waitrose, and we sell through M&S as well. We actually also sell internationally, and we sell to countries like the USA. We're in 20 states in the US at the moment. We sell to Hong Kong, Australia. We sell to Japan and some parts of Eastern Europe as well. But what's also quite important, we're actually going to some new places, so export is expanding. We're about to go to United Arab Emirates as well, and we expect our exports to grow to up to 25% by 2021.
So we're here at Bolney Wine Estate. We're in our modern winery. This winery was built in 2006, and at the moment we're just about to process some grapes from a contract customer. We're looking at our new German press here. So the grapes will be pressed first. We press our grapes quite lightly here at Bolney because we only want to produce the best wine. This holds about 4,000 litres of juice and works a bit like a big balloon where it expands under a compressor and gently squeezes the grapes against the side to deliver the juice. At Bolney we produce between 100 and 120,000 bottles a year. That's split roughly half and half between sparkling and still. And we're also the largest red wine producer in the country as well. So our MD Sam Linter, her sort of pet project is Pinot Noir, so that's one of our one of our signature wines. But Pinot Noir also goes into our Rosé Cuvée, which is our very, very sophisticated and lovely sparkling rosé wine. So you can see in the modern winery we use stainless steel mostly as fermentation vehicles. A couple of reasons for that. One is they're made of metal, so they're hardy. They're actually much easier to clean. Hygiene very important in wine making of all sorts, not to get infections into the wine. And also we can now temperature control our fermentations, which is important to deliver the styles of wine that people like to drink now, some of the more aromatic styles of white wine, for instance. And also for the red wines, to control the temperatures at the top end to make sure they don't get too hot, and that may sort of kill yeasts and lead to stock ferments, or also deliver some unwanted flavours in the wine. So temperature control these days are very important in modern winemaking. The fermentation, we use cultured yeasts here at Bolney, so we don't use the ambient yeast which are in the atmosphere, and that's because we want a predictable ferment. For the wines, will take between 2 and 3 weeks, depending on whether they're red or white. The reds take a little bit less because it was a slightly warmer fermentation. The whites take about 3 weeks. And then we will tend to clarify the wines by just allowing gravity to all the bits to fall down to the bottom. And once fermentation has completed, we'll then move the wine into another fermentation vat to allow some aging in tank. We tend to allow our wines to sit in tank. We're in mostly stainless steel tanks. We do use a little bit of oak here at Bolney, but if we do use oak, it'll be old oak, not to impart oaky flavours to our wines. So we tend to bottle the wines, these whites in early spring, early to late spring, and of the next year, and the reds probably later in the summer. For the sparkling wines, we make the base wine, and then for that vintage we will what's called tirage, which is when we add the yeast and the sugar to the base wine, and then we'll bottle it in the heavier and thicker sparkling wine bottles, and cap it with what's called a crown cap, which is like a beer bottle cap. And we do the tirage in probably the summer of the year after the vintage, and that's when virtually everybody gets involved, not just the winery staff, but ourselves in sales, and everybody gets involved in helping out in tirage. And it's also the same in harvest. We all get involved in one way or another in helping things along. So it's a real sort of collegiate atmosphere at harvest time. What grapes are those, Alex?
What's that?
What grapes are they?
Ortega.
So after tirage, which is when we inoculate the base wine for the sparkling wine, and we bottle them, we store them in our warehouse for, depending on the style, between 12 months and 36 months. Our Bolney Bubbly, which is our fresh, light and fruity white sparkling wine, is aged for about 12 months to keep it fresh and light. And then our Acre Rose, which is one of our premium rosés, is aged for 18 months to get a balance between the aging flavours and the primary fruits from the juice, and our Blanc de Blanc, which we like to age for a bit longer. And so ultimately, after we've aged them, we want to get the yeast out of the bottle. The yeast has then consumed all the sugar and has died. So ultimately we want to get that out, and we do that using a process called disgorging. And we first of all what was called riddle the yeast, which we use these gyro pallets these days. In the old days they used to use these wooden riddling racks, and you see these in the catacombs in Champagne. And they used to do it by hand. Now we use these automated gyro pallets. They hold 504 bottles each. They're on a cycle of about 7 days. So we've gone from probably about 3 months by hand to 7 days. And these gyro pallets, they are the equivalent of that handheld twisting motion, which is to shake up the yeast, and we also change the angle so that generally all the yeast actually filters down towards the neck of the bottle, and ultimately at the end of the cycle these bottles will be end over end and all the yeast will have settled at the neck of the bottle. We then freeze the neck of the bottle using this thing in the corner here, which is basically a glorified freezer, the green circular affair. We chill, there's a saline solution inside which we chill down to -24, and what we do, we put the neck of the bottle into the freezing solution, and you'll see in here that there are little holes. We put the necks of the bottle into the freezing solution, which freezes the neck, creates a pellet about that big. We then open the bottle using this machine here. That basically flicks off the crown cap, and the pellet is fired out by the pressure that is built up in the bottle due to fermentation. There's about between 5 and 6 bars of pressure inside a traditionally made bottle of sparkling wine, and you need that amount of pressure to create the tiny fine little bubbles and consistent bubbles that you need to produce a high quality sparkling wine. We then top up the bottle with a little bit of liquid called a dosage. That liquid tends to be the base wine itself, and a little bit of sugar depending on what style you want to make. We tend to make brut wines here at Bolney, and probably in the middle of the brut range. And we top it, and then we cork it. We only use high quality Portuguese cork for our sparkling wines, but again this is all done by hand. Here at Bolney we'll probably do between 1,000 and 1,500 in a day. That compares with our still wine, when you can do about 1,000 bottles an hour. So it's a very different process, very done by hand and with love here at Bolney. And much larger producers have slightly more automated ways of doing this. As we expand, as we're going to do over the next 5 years, our production will almost triple from 100 to 120,000 bottles of wine a year to over 300,000 in the next 5 years. So we're now standing in our 18-acre vineyard, which is one of our best sites. We're south-facing here. We can see the South Downs in the distance, and that's good for England. We need to be south-facing preferably, because that gives you much more exposure to the sun. We're also on a good slope which intensifies the sun, and that gives the grapes the best chance of ripening to their full extent. So this field is 18 acres, as in the name. Bolney is now 40 acres. We started off with 3 in 1972, but we're now 40 acres, and we plant lots of different types of grape varieties. That's changed quite significantly over the years. When we first started in 1972, we planted mainly German varietal grapes. That's changed drastically in terms of the climate has slightly changed due to global warming, so we can plant other things. So we are Pinot Noir specialists here at Bolney, and that Pinot Noir goes both into our still wine but also into our rosé cuvée as well. We also plant red German grapes called Rondo and Dornfelder, which go into some of our still wines, and the Dornfelder also goes into our Cuvée Noir, which is a very interesting sparkling red, which is very unusual in England. There are only a few examples of that, and we'll taste that a little bit later. We also have Pinot Gris, which is one of our most successful wines. That's poured at the Royal Box of Wimbledon. And we also have Chardonnay here as well, which goes into our Blanc de Blanc. We've planted some more Chardonnay in the last year or so to hopefully increase that production in the years to come for our Blanc de Blanc, which is the wine that was taken by first class in BA this year and last year. So a really good aspect. The soils here are mostly sandstone, so that's very similar to Burgundy, hence the Pinot Noir. and the soils on the South Downs are mostly chalk, which is similar to Champagne, but our soils here are mostly sandstone, which is excellent because they're good heat retentive soils. So this particular vineyard, it retains its heat and delivers that to the plants during the night to keep them warm. So a good. We're also on nice free draining soils as well. So although they're very hardy plants, they don't like to stand in water. So having a good drainage is important for the vines as well to give them the best possible chance.
So Bolney was started, as I said, by my parents, and it was originally my father's idea. When he was doing his degree, he had to do 6 months in Germany, university there, and stayed in the Rhine-Hessen region. And the people he stayed with had a vineyard they looked after at weekends. And one of the things they expected him to do as part of his board was to actually help out the vineyard. And he learned how to manage vines, and he just got a massive passion for it and thought, why not? We could do this in the UK. One of the very first people to think that. And he came back, and when he married my mother, they both had the dream that this could work, and they went looking for the land that is Bolney now. And they actually found an exceptional site with sandstone soils, and as you can see, a south-facing slope, without actually realising what a good site it was. So it's a little bit by luck than judgment, but that's how they ended up.
So Bolney is quite a haven for wildlife. We have a lot of pheasants, and we also have a lot of deer, which are problematic. They are beautiful to look at, but they also really enjoy grapes. So we actually use these high trellising systems called high silvos, and roe deer, which inhabit the forest which is all around us. They graze with all 4 feet on the ground, so their grazing zones are around about here. By taking the fruiting zones up here, we take away the grapes from the predation by the roe deer. So that's one of the reasons why we use these higher trellising systems. Also, it allows breezes to get into the canopy to reduce the potentiality for mildew, which is something we do suffer from here in England. And so yes, a couple of purposes for these, and also allow sunlight to get into the top of the canopy. We do use a lot of canopy management techniques here at Bolney to get our grapes as ripe as possible. But so a couple of reasons why we use these high trellising systems. So the first one we're drinking is our Bolney Bubbly. This is a light and fresh sparkling wine, great party wine. It's made from a blend of Reichensteiner, Müller Thurgau and Chardonnay. Chardonnay gives it a sort of a citrus backbone. The Reichensteiner gives it a aromatic lift, and the Müller Thurgau actually gives it a bit of body. It's quite a good actual blending grape. So yeah, meant to be light and fresh. An excellent one of our best-selling lines. The next wine is our Cuvée Rosé. This is a very sophisticated 100% Pinot Noir rosé, aged for 18 months. So it has a balance of what we call these autolytic flavours, which are the aging flavours, the brioche elements coming through, and also the summer fruits, which is coming from the Pinot Noir itself. So great characteristics of Pinot Noir, these summer fruits. So we think of it as a bit like strawberries and cream. It's got the body coming through from the aging process, but it retains its lovely summer fruits from the Pinot Noir. So really lovely, sophisticated, and a gold medal winner this year at the Global Rosé Masters. The next wine is our 18 Acre Rosé. This is a wine made mostly from Rondo, which is an early ripening German red variety. Slightly different flavour characteristics, much more sort of red currant, but again, most made in a light style, fresh and fruity So only aged again for less, for about 12 months or so, to retain vitality and freshness and fruitiness, and that's what this is all about. It's because it's so fruity, actually goes really well with things like afternoon teas and also berry fruit desserts as well. So again, most of these are brut, probably towards the sort of mid end of the brut scale, so 8, 9, 10 grams per litre of sugar, something like that. And our the other wine is our Cuvée Noir, which is an unusual wine for England. It's a sparkling red. It's made from Dornfelder, which is another German early ripening grape variety. Again, this is a lovely, I think, a really lovely, surprising wine. Actually, very fruity, very smooth. It's got quite a lot of body from the aging. It's aged for about 18 months or so, depending on the vintage. So it's somewhere between a sparkling Shiraz and a Lambrusco, something, and people think of it that way round. So again, really interesting wine, very different, put smiles on people's faces because it's so unusual. I think there's only a couple of examples of this type of wine made in England, so quite unusual. Goes really good with Christmas pud, and also, but as an interesting sort of aperitif as well. People might not be expecting it, so we get some people buying it for birthday presents, just as something slightly different. So a really interesting and different sort of style of wine, but one that's really fruity and very smooth to drink.
So my favourite sparkling wine we make here at Bolney has to be my Cuvée Noir. We make, as I said, we specialise in making a red still Pinot Noir, so I thought, why not make a red sparkling? We're specialists in red wine, let's go that route. We make this wine, it has beautiful red berry flavours to it. It's not highly tannic, you won't get highly tannic wines in the UK, so it's softer and much more approachable to drink. But because we keep a little bit of acidity in the UK, it balances out with the bubbles beautifully. This wine goes exceptionally well with barbecue, so in the summer months, those lovely smoky flavours that you get from the food you cook on a barbecue marry perfectly with this wine. It also actually is exceptionally good with Christmas pudding, a little bit random, but those lovely red berry characters and alcohol characters you get in the Cuvée Noir really match well with Christmas pudding. So we always have trouble, don't we, finding a wine that goes with Christmas pudding on Christmas Day. This is the wine, I should try it.